So in this section, we're going to try getting vehicles to start driving along our roads for the simulation. So the first step in doing that is we need to first define the vehicle compositions. This means that what percentage of heavy vehicles, what percentage of buses, what percentage of cars will be driving along the roads. So to do that, you can go up to Lists, Private Transport, Vehicle Compositions. You'll get this pop-up down here in the under Lists, and the original one is called Default. You already have one set up over there, but we can make a new one and we can call it our highway. Now, what we'll do here is we already have cars on this side. We can add two more. One of them can be heavy goods vehicles and the other one can be buses. They'll turn up by default because it's 1, 2, and 3. Now, you need to then define the speed distribution. This comes from what the values are you measured on the road when you went in person. So let's say, for example, cars, I know the speed limit on this road is around 120 kilometers. So let's say cars are moving at an average speed of 100 kilometers per hour, with heavy goods vehicles moving at an average speed of 80 kilometers per hour and buses moving at an average speed of 85 kilometers per hour. Now, along with the speeds, you also need to define the relative flows. This means the number or the relative number of that sort of vehicle that are going to be input onto your road. So we'll start with cars. For example, from the road, you'll have taken the data of the number of heavy goods vehicles compared to the number of cars. So you'll have a certain percentage of heavy goods vehicles, a certain percentage of buses, or they can be combined. That's also fine because I think that's the data you'll be taking from the road. And you'll have a percentage of cars. So let's say that the percentage of heavy vehicles in total is 0.2. So you can divide that equally among heavy goods vehicles as 0.1 and 0.1. And the rest of the 0.8, which is 80% of the vehicles, are going to be cars. So that's done. We now have our highway as the vehicle composition, and we have exactly the speed and the relative flows of the different types of vehicles. So we can now move on to the next part, which is actually placing the vehicle inputs on the highway. So you'll go and select vehicle inputs from network objects, and you just have to right click on one side of the highway and right click on the other side of the highway. Both vehicle inputs will turn up automatically. The only thing left for you to do now is to go down here and change it to our highway, our highway. Along with that, you also now need to define the volume, because earlier all we defined were the relative volumes. So now we need to define the total volume. Now the total volume is another set of data that you're going to be taking from the road. If you hover over volume, you can see that it says number of vehicles per hour and not per time interval. That means that the data that you enter here needs to be the vehicles per hour, which is what we call the flow, or the rate of flow. So over here we can, for example, if the rate of flow on the west to east side of the highway was 1,000 cars per hour, 1,000 vehicles per hour, and the relative flow on the east to west side was 1,200 vehicles per hour. Now, if you go ahead and hit play on the simulation, hit save changes, you can see that vehicles have started moving along our road. Now, this simulation is obviously extremely sped up, so it's at a very high rate. Later on, we can look at how to change that to actually get a live simulation.